It's March 2022. It's roughly just short of 6 years since I took the van out of the workshop after I finished the conversion, and since then I've been using it more or less almost daily. I also use it for work. It's been on several trips to France fishing, lots of camping trips. It's been overwhelmingly it's been reliable. There's not much gone wrong with it. There was a few little dramas which I'll go through as this video progresses, and I'll talk to you about. I'll also talk to you about all the things that I've done in terms of the interior and suspension, bits I've added to it, bits I've taken away, bits I'm going to put onto it while it's going into the workshop. So yeah, this is an update, a 6-year update roughly. And this is where we are now. The van is looking rough. It's been used and abused. It's got moss growing on the roof. It's got bits of rust coming through on the seams, as they do anyway. Yeah, it really does need some work and some love and attention. The bumpers, well, especially the back one, which I'll move on to you in a minute, and you'll know why. But the bumpers and the rock sliders are crusty and in a bit of a rough state, so they need to be blasted clean. And if I can afford it, I'll take them and have them galvanized as well, just to give them a little bit more longevity. And yeah, so that's where we are at the moment, really. Yeah, it's been a hard 6 years for the van, but I've used it, and that was what I built it for. And it was always going to go into the workshop this year because of the fact that it just needed freshening up. However, on the 24th of December 21, or so, nearly 3 months ago, this happened. So yeah, I mean, the whole point of this video isn't to really dwell on the accident and the damage that happened, but I obviously can't avoid talking about it either, especially as it was going to go in the workshop anyway, but since taking a Suzuki up the arse has kind of sped things up and changed matters slightly in terms of how much work I've got to do. So the damage, the vehicle hit the back fairly hard, and the back bumper, which is a hefty bit of gear, took and absorbed, I don't know, I mean, it's hard to talk about percentages, but I would say about 90% of the impact, really. It's deformed it. I think I can bend it back. You can see it was in need of work as well. It was a little bit rusty in places. Yeah, I don't know what to say, really. It just needs to be fixed. It's an expensive bit of kit, and very heavy and very strong, and I would like to be able to get it back on there. I think I can bend it back into shape and repair it where it needs to be done. If I can, like I said earlier on, it will be going for galvanizing, hopefully, if I can afford it at the time, and and then it'll either be painted or powder coated on top of that. So next in line for the carnage was the exhaust. That exhaust on there isn't the one that was on the van when I had the accident. I will go and have a look at that now, but yeah, lucky that the one that's on there now is the one that was on the van that I originally broke up and took all the parts off of. It's a little bit noisy and it needs to be repacked, but that's something I'm going to do now, because this one is completely well, it's not usable now. And you can see it's been deformed. It's been ripped off the flexes, bent it all up, smashed it to pieces basically. This bit here, you can see that little bit there. That is where that came into contact with the lower cam wheel, because this is a quad cam phase 1 EJ25, and it actually pushed it into the cam wheel, onto the nut of the cam wheel. It didn't actually touch because they're only like plastic, the sprockets on them cams, like a hard bakelite type of plastic. and it didn't do any damage to that. It just basically, well, I couldn't see where it's done any damage at all, apart from this is the cam cover, and you can see the damage it did to that. Now this engine is still running. It's like I say, it's 3 months on, and it's done a few hundred miles, and it, to all intents and purposes, you wouldn't. There's no doubt it's working. I mean, one of the things I'm going to do, and it's going to be part of this video, is I'm going to be doing the head gaskets on the engine. So we'll take the heads off, and we'll have a look on, because I'm fairly familiar with these heads, because I've just one of my vehicles is a Mark II Subaru Legacy with the same engine, a Phase 1 EJ25, and I've just done the head gaskets on it, and the actual thrust face in the head for the cams is very small, and there's not a lot of metal there. I'm amazed it hasn't damaged that, or if it has, it's not apparent whilst the engine's running. So that'll be part of this video, to change the head gaskets and examine the head and see if it's still usable. This side here, it looks the same as the damage that was there where it came into contact with the engine. This here it didn't hit the engine. What happened there was, that's me with a hammer trying to replicate the amount of force that was required to dent it like that, and just really for my own peace of mind, or not, but just to see how much force it took to do that kind of damage, because it was right on the edge of that, you know, where there's a right angle there. It's fairly tough. So yeah, that side never came into contact with the engine. That's just me playing around with a hammer, trying to replicate the kind of force that it would have took to do that and get around my head how the engine was still running. And then obviously the next casualty was this panel, basically hanging off at the moment, and the two side panels, those little, my mate Keith calls them sacrificial panels, because they never last that long anyway, and they last a few years, a bit like anodes on a boat or something. But yeah, they'll be coming off as well. I think that's basically it. I was really lucky. The chassis itself is fine. There was no other apparent damage underneath, and like I say, I've been driving the vehicle, or the van, again since the accident for almost 3 months now, and yeah, apart from, like I say, I've had a little fair old whack, it's still going okay. So anyway, I say that's it for the accident. It was unfortunate. One of them things. The main get out of it, or thing to take from it was no one was hurt, and that's all I really care about. So yeah, so we'll move on now. I'll get the vehicle into the workshop. It's a bit of a pain because the roof rack and even the wheels have to come off, because the access is fairly low into the actual into the garage, into the workshop. So I have to put smaller wheels with flat tyres on to get it in. But I'll get it in now and we'll start work. I've just ordered up today. I've just ordered up those panels, the back panel, and some other bits and pieces as well. One of the other panels I've got to change too, which I've been putting off for about 2 or 3 years, is this one just down there. That's going to be changed as well. And yeah, we'll go through it. I'll go through the whole lot, and like I say, I'll show you some of the parts that I've fitted to the van, and bits and pieces I've done, and so there's a few other bits and pieces I'm going to do. So hopefully the next scene that you'll see is the van in there, ready to be sorted out. It's probably about 3 weeks since I did that introduction. Took me a little bit of time to get infused about working on the van, but as you can see, all the bolt-on bits have been taken off. And it's on its small wheels and now in a garage, so I'm going to start crawling all over it, getting the bodywork done, taking off the damaged panels and replacing them. There's a couple of rusty panels that have got to be replaced as well, which I might as well do too. Chase out a few seams where there's some rust showing through, and basically the aim at the moment is to just get the bodywork done, the engine out at the same time. I'll probably just walk that out the back once the back panel's off, and basically get it resprayed. And then I'm going to just sort of tackle other little bits and pieces that have been waiting to be done for a while, such as ball joints and whatever else. Just gonna check a few bits over. There's a few knocks and bangs that I've been ignoring, I suppose, for a while. So just while it's in there, I'll take the opportunity to get it sorted. So yeah, that's where we are. So the first one is a panel on the opposite side of the van that was rusted out, and I've been putting off for a little while. So we're going to get that replaced and then move on. So now that that's done, you can see that I've come around the back and I've started cutting out the damaged back panel and other bits and pieces. While that's been done as well, I've also pulled the engine out because while access is easier, might as well. The engine is over here, and we'll get stuck into that later on in the video. We'll get the heads off with a view to changing head gaskets, and we'll also have a look at this exhaust cam and the thrust surface for the exhaust cam in this head, where it took that pasting in the in the accident. So we'll have a look at that. That'd be interesting. Like I say, it's been running fine for a good few hundred miles since then, so with no visible or audible or performance issues. So yeah, we'll see how it turns out. So anyway, yeah, so I don't really want this video to be all about, because it isn't all about bodywork. It's just unfortunate fact that I've got to do it at this time. It's supposed to be an update based on, you know, what I've done over the last 5 or 6 years since my previous episodes. So so the reason why I'm pointing this camera at this gearbox at the moment is that's not the original gearbox that you saw me put into the van when I did the conversion. I spoke to Aidan Talbot, gearbox builder extraordinaire, and he kindly rebuilt me, or built me, a gearbox and spare parts. I've got 2 gearboxes now, and this one I requested some taller gearing because I felt like the Subaru engine was kind of revving a bit too high on long journeys. So he's fitted an uprated 3rd gear, which is a bit taller, and also a taller 4th gear as well. So now it's perfect for me, really. It's transformed it on long journeys, and yeah, I can't really say much about fuel economy because it drinks like a fish anyway, really. So, but yeah, very, very pleased with that. Like I say, it's transformed the van, and it's good to have a new gearbox anyway. So yeah. So what I also did is I bought the RJES Subaru splined input shaft, and because of that, I no longer need to use a hybrid clutch arrangement, you know, with the Subaru clutch cover and the VW friction disc. So basically what I changed the flywheel for the turbo flywheel and the pull to release turbo clutch, and it's perfect. It's great. What I did have is I did have a few issues with the hybrid clutch. I had 2 clutches in there in the time, and the reason why I had 2 clutches in, because they just started to slipper after a while. Now, I'm not saying it's anything to do with the gear that I was using. I probably had it all set up wrong. I think it's probably sensitive to where you clock the lever arm on the spindle there, and I should imagine that after a certain amount of wear it was, well, anyway, it slipped, and I've changed it. So enough waffling on about that. I'm very, very happy with the turbo clutch arrangement and the pull to release clutch. Kind of a little bit of a faff getting it apart, obviously, because you've got to be able to separate the release bearing from the clutch cover plate where it locks in there with that ring. But that's fairly easy. Basically, all I've done, as you can see down here, I've fitted drilled a little hole underneath here with a rubber plug, which I can't get out at the moment. Let's have a look. Okay, that's out. And then I've got a screwdriver that goes up there, and basically you just have to, there's plenty of videos out on it anyway. So yeah, it's easy to separate then. But I love the turbo clutch. It's a perfect arrangement, and it transmits the power perfectly. Back to bodywork, I'll also be changing out this panel here. I did some repairs on it when I first got the van a few years ago, so I'll change that, and there's a little filler piece that goes in there that I've got as well. So I've got them 2 panels, they'll be going in there, new ones. I might as well get it all done while it's all accessible, and obviously I'll be separating the rest of this this back panel and swapping it out for the new one. Additionally, also I had to cut this cross member to be able to drive the van again after the accident, because it was stoved in. So basically I cut this and then pulled the panel out and drove it like that for a while. So yeah, I've got to repair that. Unfortunately, I haven't found anywhere where I can get a replacement. So what I'll be doing is I'll be straightening everything up and stitching it together again with a welder, and yeah, just doing it that way really. So the last back panel, or the remnants of the last back panel, have been cut off. I've repaired the cross member panel that goes across there that was cut. It's a shame I couldn't get a new one of them, because that one's really not in the best of shape in terms of corrosion and whatever else. I'm going to have to weld up a few patches into it and whatever. It importantly, the bit that actually welds to the panel is fine, so that'll have to be as it is for the moment, and then I'll make good the rest of it. So this is just sitting on there at the moment, this panel. This is actually really a good quality panel. It looks almost perfect, well, to my eye anyway. Really very pleased with it, and it's nice to see that I know for a fact that these weren't available or readily available a few years ago, because on that old panel that I had, I actually did a repair and spliced in a bottom section off of another one, so it kind of could have done with changing anyway, really. Yeah, I'm just trying to make myself feel better. So yeah, all that's just held on there for the moment with some of these Cleco pins. I think they're called Cleco. They're fantastic. They really are great for bodywork and when you're lining up panels and just pinning them on temporarily before you do any welding. Right, so while I'm in here, I'm also going to have to change the rear quarter. Basically, you can see that there's a long time. Happened long ago in a distant past of this vehicle. There was a splice made there, obviously some sort of accident damage, and it wasn't perfect. You can see the hump in the just above it there, and I could always see it. And every now and again, you would get some rust come through, and I'd treat it from the inside and patch it up. And I kind of just for the time that I've had the van, I've kind of pretended it wasn't there, because it's such a major job to really put right. But I've decided now I'm here, I might as well just crack on with it, and I'm going to replace the you can see I've started cutting out the bits there already for taking the panel off. Yeah, these panels come as a whole section that go from top to bottom. I won't be submitting myself to that much work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it along here, and I'll cut the new panel as well, flange it, and I will splice the new one in there, weld it, grind it all down and lose it hopefully in with filler just in this line here along there somewhere, much like I did on the other side of the van with that small panel on the rear quarter that's just above the jacking point. So yeah, it's not much. It's not what I really wanted to do. I didn't really want to do this extra work, but while I'm here, I might as well just get it done, because it's one of them things that's, as I say, it's kind of been bothering me for on and off well, since I've really had the van, long before I even did the Syncro conversion. So I'm going to go home in a little while and order that panel up. I'm also going to have to change the panels underneath as well. I think there's two of them that are still available. Annoyingly, there's another couple of little filler bits that aren't, but yeah, because it's looking like it's all gone a little bit wrong underneath here where the fuel filler goes. So that panel there is readily available as well. I've just changed it on the other side of the van, on the other one. So I'll do that as well. So I'll start taking all this apart, order the bits up, and hopefully this will be the last of the welding that I have to do before I can blow this thing in paint again, get it sorted, and then crack on with a few interesting bits with regards to mechanical stuff on the engine, and go through, and I'll show you some of the bits I've done. I'm also planning on doing some of the Syncro strengthening that I have always promised that I would do, and I never actually got round to it because I was too busy driving the van really. So I've got some nice little bits to put on the front, so hopefully that will be in this video too. Okay, another bodywork update. Back panel's all on, all welded in, as is the repaired cross member that I couldn't find a replacement for. That's just behind that that fixes to. It wasn't really ideal. It could have been in better, well, obviously better condition, because it took a took a car in it. But once it was straightened out, it will fit again. And yeah, that's done. It's a shame I couldn't get a new one, really. And it's quite surprising that really that cross member there isn't actually a bit more beefy, really, because it's all that really protects the engine from a rear end shunt, apart from the bumper. And the standard ones of them aren't very substantial. Anyway, the other panel that I've done around here is obviously this one that I told you about before. That was because of an old repair that I wasn't happy with. I've obviously done that panel there as well. The panels inside there that I told you about weren't actually as bad as I thought. On the other side, I had to change basically everything. But the panel that I thought was bad, where it goes through the fuel filler goes through, was actually, it was okay, it was salvageable, it wasn't rotten all over, and I cut out a little bit and replaced it. The filler panel that goes on the right hand side alongside it was replaced, as was another one further along that faces vertical, which I had to it was not available, so I had to fabricate that. But anyway, that's done now. It's all nice and tight and nice and solid again. I've just blown it in with some primer, which will all get rubbed down at some point once I've filled a few little imperfections, and then get it ready to spray green again. It's funny, you know, when you put it in this colour, you kind of think, ooh, grey or white even, or something like that. I must admit, I do love white panel vans. I think they look great, especially Syncros. But this really, it wouldn't stay pretty for long, really, the way I use the van. So it's a bit of a roughy tufty, like Tonka toy, really. So it's easy, really, just to spray it in it's a satin olive drab colour, and yeah, I quite like it anyway. So yeah. That really is almost all of the welding done. The only other bit I've got to do is, you can see if I just zoom in a touch, just down there, that pair of mole grips hanging off. I found another bit of rot. I mean, why wouldn't I? It was just down there on the sill. Now, I happen to have a sill in stock, but instead of changing it, the whole thing, because the rest of it was solid, really, I've just chopped out the bad bit, the offending rust, and I'm going to splice in a new bit. I'm getting quite confident with the splicing on that. So I'll say that one there, you can't, for all intents and purposes, that's you wouldn't know that was part of originally that panel down there that went up to the top. So, well, you do now, because I've just put it on YouTube, but you know what I mean. I'm getting pretty good at that, I think. Anyway, that's that. I'll probably next show you when it's all ready for spraying in green, and then we can start moving on to some of the more interesting stuff. Okay, so now it's time to have a look at this engine. You'll recall that this was the cam that took the brunt of the impact on the end of the bolt that holds the sprocket in place. So basically, I've just stripped off the front of the engine. It's all at top dead center at the moment. Taking the belt off and an idle pulley. Started cleaning it all up. I'm basically gonna take these cams out and check the thrust face that I'll show you in a little while, and see if there's any visible damage. Then I'm going to take the head off, spin it over, take the other head off. I'm going to try and do it this time with the minimum of disruption. You can see I've just basically loosened off the manifold. I'm not going to disturb the water manifold or that one too overly much. I can change the heads quite easily without it. Same goes for the water pump. All the idlers and the pulleys are all fairly new. They haven't done a massive amount of mileage over these last 6 years. So unless there's any significant play which is immediately obvious they're staying on, I'll just change the belt and change the head gaskets and the inlet manifold gaskets, obviously, as well, and anything else that I find. So, right, let me take this cam off, and we'll have a look. Okay, so that last clip was about a week ago. A lot's happened since then. This is the head that we were talking about earlier on. And looking at that, what I was initially worried about was this thrust surface here, which would have took brunt of the cam when it took a pasting from the exhaust in the accident. That's actually, there's no problem on that, but there is a problem. You can see we've got some pickup that's occurred on there. On the camshaft it doesn't really show much, but on the cap and on here you can see that there's been something going on, and you can see that's slightly, well, that's not straight anyway. So, and on the other side I was surprised to find some damage there as well, mainly on the camshaft, as you can see. Not so bad on the, hang on, let's pull that off, on the journal, but it's still there. The other head is fine. The other head is fine, although looking very old and knackered. I can tell you one thing, having just a few months ago done the head gaskets on the Legacy that I'm driving, which has got exactly the same engine. That's as I speak, it's just done about 80,000 miles, and that engine was a lot fresher looking than this one. Like I say, I have no idea of the mileage on this or any of its history apart, prior to me getting the van and basically cutting up the donor and taking this out of it. So basically this could have done 150, could have done 250,000 miles. I don't know. All I know is it's looking tired. You can just tell from the carbon build up on the pistons and on the underside of the head as well. So anyway, yeah, this is toast. This is properly knackered, this head. So what I have done is I've been on eBay and I've found myself another couple of heads off of a much lower mileage engine. There's hardly any carbon build up. It was advertised at being 40,000 miles, but I think it's probably bollocks. I can't imagine that's true, but I can tell you one thing, they're in a lot better shape than the ones I've just taken off. That's the left hand one over there, and this is the right hand one over here, and I'm just basically just cleaning them up now, ready to take them and have them skimmed. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sticking these newer heads onto the old block, which I'm currently cleaning up. So yeah, basically that's it at the moment. I think looking at the state, I mean, you can just see, I mean, I've got that piston there is soaking in something to take off that, hopefully loosen up that carbon deposit on there. But these are properly coked up. The bores, you can still just about see some honey marks, but I'm not really confident in this block at the moment. So what I'm planning to do is I'm going to, either way, because I just got to get this van back on the road for the moment, is I'm going to fit these newer heads onto the existing block, get it up and running, stick it back in the van, and at some point I'm going to get myself either build myself or get myself a new short block. I've been reading some interesting articles about fitting the later, what should I say, the earlier phase 1 double overhead cam heads onto the later blocks. It's entirely possible apparently, and works very well, and for a short amount of time apparently Subaru actually did that at the factory for a while. So I'll probably look for a phase 2 engine block and do all that then. So that's way far away. You just need to get this up and running and done as soon as possible. I forgot to say really about any speculation about this damage on this head that took the pasting from the exhaust can. I say there's no damage on the right hand head, the one that got away basically, although it is looking very old and coked up. But this one is slightly odd that there's more damage on the side that didn't get it. But I don't know. What one possible scenario that could be, well, is either at some point in the past it's got a significant amount of shit come up through the oil into them two cam journals, or perhaps and probably likely, when you consider how much force it took to dent that exhaust can, and I couldn't even replicate it really with a hammer, and that all went on to the end of this cam on the end of that bolt, and it's hard to imagine or believe that this casting Didn't sustain damage or it's amazing it didn't shatter it really, considering. But I think it's probably not the same shape it was before, even though it's something that you can't see, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's what caused these front ones to start running out of shape, out of true, and cause that pickup on both of those journals on the front of those cams. So yeah, who knows? The only thing I do know for sure is that is now a doorstop. And of course, I keep on talking about this Subaru Legacy that I bought for an engine, and why don't I just take the engine out of this and put it in the van, because it's a perfectly good engine. It's done 80,000 genuine miles, and it runs very, very nicely. The reason I'm going to do that is because I like this car at the moment. It really drives nicely, and I just can't bring myself to kill it just yet. So yeah, unless I get pushed into the corner and I really need the engine, I'm not going to do that. So yeah, so this lives to fight another day, this one. Okay, it's probably it's a good few weeks since that last clip. I've been fairly busy. Life gets in the way, and yeah, you can see the van's been resprayed. It's not the best job in the world, but it certainly looks a little better than it did before. And so that's that done. Most of the bodywork's done now, and I'm getting on with other little bits and pieces. Well, not actually little bits and pieces, quite some quite substantial bits and pieces. But at the moment, I'm just fitting the newly sourced heads onto the old block, and I think I'm just at the moment I'm just checking the cam clearances and making some adjustments where necessary. I've got quite a lot of shims from the old vehicle, from the old heads, and if I need to do any adjustments, I should have some there. But anyway, it's going to be going back together. I'm not going to bother videoing this because there's enough videos on the internet and on YouTube about building EJ25s, and this video is already making well, it's getting a lot longer than I'd anticipated or really wanted. So so the engine will hopefully be back in fairly soon. All being well, I'll get this built up. One thing I will say is just to clarify a point I made in the last video when I was talking about keeping, if I do, which I think I'm going to have to do, source a new rebuilt block, or a very good block anyway, and probably go for a phase 2, but keep the double overhead cam heads on there, the phase 1 heads, which again was done from the factory for a very short time, and is quite doable. The reason for that was because it allows me to keep all of the sensors and the wiring harness that I've got without having to go through the rigmarole of getting another harness for a phase 2 engine with just the single overhead cam heads. So it'll be a much less painful experience in terms of refreshing the engine. So anyway, so that's that. I've also got the suspension off. And I'm going to be, I've found the source of several knocking noises that I had, and that's something that I'll talk about a little bit later on. And I am also going to do something that I've been promising to do for, well, ever since I did this conversion. This is a strengthening plate off of the original chassis that I cut up, which was a 16. Very rusty 16 that I think you'll all remember if you've seen the videos, and someone who I'll talk about later on did me a kind service of getting that off of the chassis cuts that I made, and it can't have been an easy job, so I'm very grateful for that, and I'll speak more about that later on. So that and its brother or sister from the other side is going to give you going on +2 plates that you can buy, and I have just ordered today. So finally the 16-inch strengthening will be going on the front, and hopefully that's something a little bit more interesting than just watching me do bodywork. And finally, for this clip here, this segment, that's the old diff. I've taken that one off, and this is the new one which Aidan Talbot built me. It must be about 18 months ago or longer. Much to my shame, I never got round to fitting it. So that's going to be going back on, nicely refreshed front diff, and the VC off of the old one is currently away as well, being refreshed and refilled. And so as soon as that comes back, this lovely new diff, or newly built diff, will be going into the front. And yeah, so that's another thing that's been done, which is a little bit more interesting than bodywork. Okay then, so that's the new heads installed onto the old block, and it's all been built up and ready to go back in. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have to end this video here, because the whole thing's getting a little bit too long really. So there'll be a part 1 and a part 2. So this is the end of part 1. We'll come back in part 2, and that will kick off with me retrofitting the 16-inch strengthening panels or parts to the front, and then we'll go through a few other little bits and pieces where I can show you sort of things that have gone wrong, and some of the bits I've added to the van, and hopefully, like I say, get this thing out of here and driving again. So I'll see you in part 2 hopefully. Cheers, thanks for watching.